So the brand Yezdi is getting relaunched. The first launch of the Yezdi was given a very warm welcome by Indians. Because again, we Indians in the 80s, in the 70s, not that we loved Royal Enfield or we loved the Yezdi brand. We had absolutely no options. So the cult following that Yezdi and Royal Enfield had was more with reference to monopoly and no options, no relevant options in the market. Yes, there was Yamaha, there was Hero Honda, but as compared to the US market where there were multiple options, there were very few options. And Yesdi as a brand is amazing. When it was introduced in the 70s and the 80s, it was first Java in the 60s and then Yesdi in the 80s. But that is basically engine built by Java in the 1960s, little retweaking here and there. The Yesdi Road King had a good presence, had a good engine, and it performed really good for the time. For that time, I mean, for that time, if you compare it with the options that our Western counterparts got, a inline Honda 6, a inline 4 Honda 6, we were miles behind. But as compared to the options that the Indians had got, it was a pretty good brand. Now, Yazdi has been relaunched the third time, relaunched in the sense the third upgrade with the Alpha 2 engine, which is Euro 20 petrol compliant, which is good thing so that the engine doesn't get damaged, especially fuel injected engines. But my question again, yes, the has been associated with the Parsis as well, because you see the Aura Mazda logo on the mudguard. It is religious for Parsis, including me. And I had been a proud owner of a 1982 years the Model B. I still repent selling that bike. I really do. I had actually, I was so attached to that bike. I think it was an impulsive sell. I'd offered the buyer three times the cost, the buying cost, and he refused to give me that bike because the bike that I owned also had a history behind it. It was owned by a Babaji. Unfortunately, when he passed away, his kids did not. Fortunately for me, his kids didn't want the bike, and I had got the bike unopened, and I loved that bike. Um, just a short history: I had a 1982 EST, and I had a scrap condition 1997 RXZ. So I'd spent all my time and resource redoing the RXZ. I still have that bike. I'm not going to make the mistake selling that two-stroke bike. But in the process, the ESD wasn't taken care of. It almost became scrap condition. I just didn't have the time to restore it. If In hindsight, if I'd kept my ESD, I would have restored it by now, and I would have enjoyed that bike. But the thing that I loved about the ESD, the original ones were, they weren't fast. You wanted a fast machine, you had the RXZs, you had the 100s, you had the 135s, you obviously had the RDs, which was pinnacle of Indian automobile two-stroke and Indian automobile performance in the 90s and the 80s. Unfortunately, I like to re-emphasize the RD350 that we got was the base version of the RD350s that the our Western counterparts got. They got the liquid cooled engine, they got the RD400, they got the RDs with disc brakes and much advanced feature with a proper trellis frame and all. But the ones that we got, we, considering the monopoly and considering there weren't much options, the RD350 was the best option. Coming back to the ESD, the reason I enjoyed that bike, and I thoroughly enjoyed that bike, because it wasn't the fastest. It wouldn't turn like my RXZ would. What it had, and it had in plenty, was character. It had that long stroke, two stroke engine, which was very, I mean, if you wanted a long stroke engine, you had the Royal Enfield. That's about it. Then you had the ESC. So in that thut, 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 thut sound, that's because it was a long stroke engine. That feel that you used to get was amazing. ESD was one of the few bikes you would enjoy riding slow. You wouldn't feel bored because you were just vibing with the bike. It's a bike that you'd enjoy riding slow, and you enjoy looking at the scenery if you're going to a mountain place, if you're on the ghats, if you're riding besides the river, you'd enjoy seeing that space. See, the same thing I cannot say with reference to my RXZ, because my RXZ wants me to ride fast. If I ride at a constant 50, 60, I'd feel slow. I'd feel like I'm not really justifying what the bike is built for, which is okay for young blooded people. But I really enjoyed my Yazdi. Now, the Yazdis which have been relaunched, and the third version is basically the engine of the Mojo, the Mahindra Mojo, the Mojo that was over engineered, and Mahindra had spent 5 years engineering it, and they lost the first mover advantage in terms of the performance market and performance bike category. So they obviously they had an engine that spent crores behind it, and Mojo was an absolute disaster because it couldn't compete with the KTM's because it was priced compete as expensive as the KTM. So they obviously had an engine with them. They got the branding rights from Java to be manufactured and sold in India. So they used that. Then they got the branding rights from Yezdi to manufacture Yezdi. So they obviously the same engine is being at least they are being tuning different as per the adventure, as per the Roadster, as per the classic. Because the classic, if you see, the power figures are different. Uh, and the power figures of the years, the adventure are different, and as well as the Roadster now, which is launched. My point is, if you want performance, if you want a bike that has that punch, there are multiple bikes in the market. The thing that differentiated Yasti was that long stroke feel, which unfortunately the new ones don't have. That is why a 20 horsepower Royal Enfield without a day beat the 30 horsepower Yastis in sale, because the people they're targeting at the cruiser market. The cruiser market would not mind riding at constant 80, 90 all day long, and they are happy with that. They are not looking they're not a cruiser market is not targeting people in the KTM category that they would want to rush and they would want to go above 120, 130, 140 all day long. The Yesdis, the third Alpha 2 engines, obviously are better than the Alpha 1 and the original engine, which was a disaster, which is good. I'm glad Yesdi is upgrading. But I think they should go back to the roots, go back to that lazy long stroke engine that will give you that instant torque, that will not want to rev beyond 5 6,000 rpm, that is happy in the low torque range where it's just chugging along, something what the BSA is right now. BSA is another story, but yes, something what the BSA is right now, a nice long stroke engine that can compete with the Royal Enfield and will get the same nostalgic feel what the ESD and the Java has. See, actually, this is just my opinion. I mean, maybe they're trying to be more relevant as per 2025 standards. But I feel if they had something that could chug along with a nice low end torque, that would have been a better option to be released in the market than their medium stroke Mojo engines that they have retuned and retuned. So, but again, credit where it's due. I feel their bikes look sexier, their bikes looks more relevant, the bikes look more lively, and they keep on upgrading the looks of the bikes, which is amazing. They make the changes in the chassis where required, they make the changes in the suspension where required. Now, Yasdi is getting the scrambler back as well, which is another good thing. But again, with the Triumph Scrambler in the market, why would someone want to buy a Yasdi Scrambler? Unless it's relatively much more relatively cheaper. But again, if you're looking at a scrambler, if you're looking at off-roading, you do have the Xpulse 250 in the same category. In terms of the scrambler, you still have the Scram 440, which is Royal Enfield long stroke engine, which quite a few people would like. Or you also have the very competitively Gorilla, the Royal Enfield Gorilla 450, which will be priced pretty. I'm assuming the Scrambler may be priced pretty close to that particular bike. This is just assumptions, but the entire idea of me speaking is being a Yazdi owner before. What attracted me towards that bike was the looks, was the chugging low speed chugging capacity, was the long stroke feel, was that the bike would vibrate with every stroke because it was a long stroke engine. I feel that is what would attract a buyer like me to reinvest in the brand, obviously. But I mean, it, this is just relevant to people like me. There might be people who actually appreciate these changes, and I think they're doing a pretty decent job. This is just my opinion, and let me know if you have the same opinion. Take care.